So hi everybody. We have Karen, Bea, Eric, Mark, of course. I know Mark. Just uh wow,
Mark's been with
Jeremy.
the SEO community for since like 2015. I've been seeing him, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Hey Mark. Mark is working in a marketing team of
Nice,
a series seller. Yeah.
nice.
We have Hey Danielle, Howie. Who else? Nice hairdo. I wish I had those spiky spikes as well. Like, no, don't look at me. Hey JR.
All right. So
So
I was just briefing the people, kind of reminding them on the house rules for the call. So it's pretty basic. The people who are joining us, we appreciate you joining us on the live call. Um, but while Itamar and I are conducting kind of the talk, everyone is requested to stay on mute. But if you have any questions popping up on your minds at all while you're listening to us, please type in the chat, type, just a capital me on the chat box, and then you will be acknowledged at the end of the talk, and you will be allowed to ask your question to me or Itamar via, through voice. But if you're a little bit shy, and you want to ask questions, you can always just type it in the chat box, and my guy John will read it for us, and then share the question to the rest of the group. So again, this quote unquote webinar, it would be an insult for webinars everywhere for me to call it that. This session
yeah.
is being recorded. Um, I have recorded like the 5 past episodes of this series. Unfortunately, you know how busy things have been during this pandemic. Like the demand for SEO has spiked, at least on our end, and I think on Itamar's end as well. So we haven't had a lot of time to edit. But rest assured that once we edit these, we will set them all live at the same time. So yeah, you have to kind of wait for it, but it's like Netflix. You get the entire season once it does arrive. So
Mhm.
yeah, good things
They
will
can
come.
binge.
Yeah, they can binge on my face along with the other SEO people. Okay.
Sounds like a weekend plan to me.
Oh god, that sounds like a horrible weekend. Anyway,
Don't be hard
um,
on yourself. Okay. We have a
yeah.
bunch
So
of people already.
right. So
That's
don't
cool.
mind it when people are, popping up. They do that all the time. People will pop in and
In and
out.
out.
Yeah. So yeah, not everyone lives on the same schedule. We understand that.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, sure. Hey,
So
Timo is here. Hey, Timo.
nice. So just to
So,
give everyone a background on what this talk is about, it's going to be a little bit different from the past talks wherein we had the likes of Jason and Benj and Sam kind of go through decks to present, on different topics. With Itamar, we decided to do more of an interview. This is not about tactical SEO. This episode is not about tactical SEO. This is not about what you can start applying to your campaigns right after this call. But I would say that this meeting is more introspective. It's more business-like in the sense that we'll talk about the industry, what we feel might be the future of it, how we can adapt during this crisis. I know Itamar has insights not just on SEO but on general business because of his position with the Israel Chamber of Commerce here in the Philippines. So we should be able to get some insights on that one. We are also basically what I want to achieve here is for everyone to get a sense of where we are as an industry, and then where we're headed, and how to position ourselves as individuals and as agencies, as teams, to deal better with what's right in front of us. So yeah, I guess we are at the part where I'll introduce Itamar. So many of you are familiar with this guy. I've known him since like 2015, I think, but I've heard of him long before that. He of course is the founder, and I'm not sure what you call yourself, your
So
position
now
in.
it's just the founder, and now Bernard is the managing partner of TrueLogic.
Yeah. So you've been doing this since what year, Itamar?
2009.
Wow.
It's
So
11
more
years
than a
now.
decade. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've been doing it for more than a decade. As of now, they are the biggest SEO agency in the Philippines. They've expanded to things like web design, development, and other forms of marketing. Um, he is also the chairman emeritus of the Israel Chamber of Commerce. Like, I'm super excited to introduce him to you guys, have him here on the show. It's not often that we get someone of his caliber sharing his knowledge. So everyone, welcome Mr. Itamar Gero. Itamar, how are you doing?
Thank you, Glenn. Wow, what an introduction. I'm humbled. We talk once in a while. We're just person to person, so I don't see myself as a caliber in the industry. I'm actually excited to hear about the previous talks. So once you put them up on the SEO Netflix, I'll binge them. I'm so happy to be in this industry with the likes of you and Jason, and we have Sean and many others. And I'm glad to see that the industry have grown and that the industry have expanded. I hope to believe that we were part of it in one way, shape, or form. And it's just, yeah, great to be here and talk to all you guys.
Right. Okay. So we'll get right into the meat of the matter. So my first question in this interview for you is, how has business been in the past 4 months since the lockdown started in mid-March?
Wow, so it started really, really scary, really rocky. As you know, we're a large company by now, and the larger you are, your operational costs are just inflating, especially after a good 10 years, not just for us, but for the entire world. It gets to a point where everything is comfortable. You don't see the curveball. And the pandemic was a curveball that, of course, nobody could see. So for us, March and April were really, really scary. We dropped 30% in revenue because we're relying on so many different clients and agencies around the world. We can't necessarily control how they're experiencing the pandemic or how are they experiencing, the concept of what's going to happen. Because some people were very in denial or very positive about it or very pessimistic about it, but you can't control dozens of clients' perception. So the first thing that people want to chop is, of course, the marketing budget. So they go and look at their SEO and say, okay, let's pause it, let's stop it. And we need to reserve cash and we need to see where we're heading. And it's the same with us. Like, we paused all of our AdWords campaigns, for example. We have around a $5,000 campaign for one of our brands and $1,000 here and $1,000 there. We just stopped everything. So March and April were very, very uncertain. But I'm glad to say that since then, and I guess we'll get to cover a bit of how we did, what we did, and what are the outcomes, we managed to pull back up. It's not the forecast that we should have had, but that's understandable, pandemic and all. But I think after the shock, the initial shock, and I will expound on it, it's not just the clients that are canceling, it's the transition to work from home. It's the mentality of, oh, something's wrong, so probably clients wouldn't renew with us. That also got us to kind of forfeit or give up on some clients. That got us to deep 30%. Right. But I'm glad to say that in May it started shaping up. June was good, and July was even better. Like you said, the need for SEO is spiking up, and for digital services as a whole. How was it for you guys? Did you feel kind of the same, like, curve and then going back up?
It's exactly the same, and I'm glad you and I can provide the people, the attendees here, kind of the perspective from a bigger agency and a smaller agency. As some of you might know, we're an agency of only about 30 people at any given time. So Itamar might be the mall. We're kind of like the boutique in terms of, kind of the analogy in store sizes. But to answer your question, it is true that a lot of people paused their campaigns starting in April. When this whole thing went down in March, people, I guess, were still in shock and did not react, especially the clients during the first couple of weeks. But towards the end of the month, a lot of them would go on pause and, or shut it down. So, for example, some industries in particular were hit pretty hard. So some of our clients were in the finance industry, in the money lending industry. That's an industry that's not going to get back on its feet for the foreseeable future. I mean,
Yeah.
even cash loans text spammers have stopped spamming us because
They're not looking for you anymore.
right. So it's gotten that bad. Travel and tourism clients
For sure.
have paused, but other clients, I'm pretty happy to say that after April, starting in May, they kind of put themselves back together, and they started reactivating their campaigns, which is a great sign. More than the money, as a fellow entrepreneur, you're happy that they're finding it in them to go on despite the pandemic. And
Yeah.
I've even experienced some really odd ones. So for example, we have one African client who runs a small online store in a small island nation out there in Africa. The online store is basically an online grocery, and he had to cut his services because the demand was so much because of the pandemic that he didn't even have stock. So once he was able to, that's kind of the inverse, where in demand just went through the roof and he had to stop everything. But there's good and bad in it. Don't get me wrong, there's more bad in the situation than good, but
for sure,
overall, people have been starting to find themselves. I think us as an industry, we should look at the silver lining here, wherein the Philippines was going digital anyway prior to the pandemic, but this would only accelerate things for us. So it's a good development.
Yeah, I share that sentiment because when we do town halls and I want to tell people, hey, we're doing good, we have not a fail-proof, but the future-proof industry, it's very hard not to think about the industries that are not there and the friends that don't have a job. So it's hard to say, hey, there is a silver lining. We're just very kind of humble about it. We just happen to be in this industry and this pandemic hit. And we've seen similar situations with clients canceling, clients coming back. And various types of industries that we didn't even think of all of a sudden coming out of the woodworks, needing to go online. That's the biggest thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any, how has lead generation been during the pandemic? Because when I go to SEO org, a lot of people talk about losing clients, but how about gaining clients? Did you notice any changes in the kind of leads that you get?
So I think, first of all, when it comes to losing clients, I think those are very kind of the fast and loose type of clients that are not even certain what they want. They just have some money in their pockets and they're starting a business, or they have backing funding, and they're not solid, like a solid business that has a business model and a cash flow. Because when it comes to the businesses that now are really in demand of our services, these are the type of businesses. So if I separate it, because TrueLogic is doing business mainly locally, it's the enterprises. These guys are proven, bona fide, they have deep pockets, and they realize that they need to go live, or they need to go stronger, and they come charging, right? They're coming with all their requests, from new apps to websites to, of course, SEO, PPC, and whatnot. But the leads are a mixed bag now, because with the international brands and brands like SEO Reseller, we have a lot of people that are now starting their business. And that's a tricky one. Like you gave an example, I'll give you an example. There's a church somewhere in a state, I don't remember the state, but from the Bible states in the United States. And now they're all under lockdown. So the pastor decided to come and take our services, our dashboard and services, to be able to help the businesses of the community. So there's a lot of these situations that you would have never thought of, that all of a sudden are coming to fruition.
Right.
But those are edge cases. Like the businesses that are really stable, solid, they reserved cash from a year, 2, 3 back, are now saying, if I put the money now, I'm going to get out of this thing winning, right? Because after every winter comes a summer. Pandemic, no pandemic, virus, no virus, life will go on, and businesses will go on. So locally, these are the types of businesses. Internationally, we just kind of revamped back our current clientele, our current partners and agencies that we work with. I think, again, we put more effort into retention than into new sales. And that's proved itself, because at the end of the day, when you think about it, whether you're worried about the situation or you're positive about the situation, it's just about what you're willing to listen to, right? It's like it's a cognitive bias. And your clients might be worried or they might be very positive, and you might be worried and you might be positive, and it's contagious. So as long as we talk retention, as long as we talk about the day after, as long as we talk about, hey, let's make a plan together. If you need to reduce the budget, that's fine, it's understandable, but there is a day after, let's work on it together. Retention is key versus scrambling for new sales, because now you're chasing after that person that doesn't know you, and a lot of other people are chasing the same person. Your chances are diminishing severely.
Right.
So I think it was retention and enterprises and those edge cases of businesses that are going online that became our lead. You mentioned the example of the grocery store. We had, for example, a client from the UK selling arcade games. Like, they do home delivery of the good old pinball machines and stuff.
Nice.
These guys are backed up with orders. And so we needed to revamp their Shopify website and put SEO on the site because they can't keep up with the orders. I guess a lot of guys at home are wanting to play some old school game, bring them back to the good old days, think about pre-pandemic world. And you have a lot of these edge cases that are very interesting.
Incidentally, I just ordered my own arcade game. It should arrive tonight. So yeah, I'm part of that.
Maybe I should get one too. What, like Street Fighter or a pinball?
Right.
I'll get one too.
I guess the only drawback of with local clients is that during the pandemic they always have the excuse of we're working on skeleton shift, so accounting is dead. You'll have to wait. Shout out to you guys. But yeah,
exactly. We had to shoulder PPC budgets of like thousands of dollars because the brand told us, hey, we just don't have a person to cut you the check.
Right.
But you've been working with these guys for over a year and they're very good payers. So you have to make this decision as the CEO, because they come to you and say, hey, should we pay for their Facebook ads and PPC? And you say, you know what, sure. In the belief that they'll pay back.
Yeah, we do the same thing, but of course you have to kind of pick your battles with this one. If it's a proven client, by all means. But if it's someone new, you might have to hedge your bets a little bit. So yeah,
definitely.
Let's go to the next question. How has the pandemic changed your operations? You alluded to working from home and stuff like that. Describe to me how TrueLogic is working right now.
So changed our operations completely, obviously. There was a meme that was shared in the beginning. Who led the digital transformation in your organization? The CTO, CFO, CEO, or COVID-19? I'm happy and sad to say that that's the digital transformation that we probably needed, but it wasn't led with a preemptive thought. It was led because of being reactive. We did have a few teams that were working remotely for a few days a week, but we never tried. And remember the large scale that we have, 200 people. We never tried 200 people taking equipment, sitting at home and working. Right. So it's really affected. And I think we had to really tighten the measurables because it's tricky. If you can't see what's happening, you don't work shoulder to shoulder when you have 200 people and hundreds of campaigns. It's enough that there's a blind spot in a team or with a person or two, and that's a cavity in the operations that can collapse the entire thing. So like when we looked back at March and April, I think some of it was related. So we were forced to really push to work from home pretty fast. By the 16th, I think we were all working from home. Just me and a few managers stayed in the office to kind of plan and devise, what's next. And we suffered losses from it. We suffered losses of clients from it. But now, it's a different ball game now. So we tightened the measurements and just talked. My employees probably hate me for that. In the first couple of town halls, we talked a lot about accountability. So it's for the people that are super accountable. It sounds like, why are you telling me that? But you throw this blanket statement that we have to be seriously accountable because we can't see each other. We don't know exactly what's happening. Our tracking tools are okay, but they might introduce a blind spot, and we can't afford that. But now I can say it's much better. How's it for you guys? Did you go full on straight from the beginning?
In the beginning, everyone worked from home. So our setup is kind of weirder than most agencies. As some of you might know, we work in Pampanga, but like half of our staff is from Metro Manila. So a lot of our editors and writers were working from home on a full-time basis anyway to begin with. So those guys were not affected. And many of these are not only skilled people, they're also very, very disciplined people. So we've been working with them for years and years now, and there's no change as far as they're concerned. But for everyone else, mid March we were kind of caught with our pants down because we didn't, unlike you guys, we didn't even have a tracking system for people working from home because that did not used to exist prior to pandemic. But basically what happened was that during the height of the ECQ and MECQ lockdowns, I was the only one working from the office because like you, it's a few minutes walk from where I live. But everyone else was asked to work from home, and like you, I did stress accountability because people might not like to hear that, especially there's no way to kind of win with a statement like that, but you have to
Yeah,
deliver it because you deliver it to someone who's actually a self-starter and is performing even without anyone watching. Then he asks, why are you telling me that? I've always been doing this. But
it's an
if
insult.
you
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, but if you tell it to someone, if you throw out that statement and you have people who are, less accustomed to working from home and who are more susceptible to distractions, then they're going to be thinking, "Oh shit, he's referring to me, and this guy is after me." So you really can't win as a leader, but you have to deliver it nonetheless. And um, uh, I won't say that everything turned out well. For people who've only been working with the group for a few months prior to the pandemic, things did not go so well because the indoctrination process and kind of the training process was left hanging, and they were left to fend for themselves at home, and that's never an
right.
ideal situation. As a leader, you want to try and reach out to everyone, but at the same time, delivering your stuff to clients will have to come first. So you're caught between rock and a hard place where you have to tell them, look, you're working from home. You can ask me anything you want. You can set up meetings with me, set up trainings with your managers. But for the most part, some of the things that you need to study will have to be self-studied. And some people are good at that. Some people were not ready for that. And that's just the way it goes. In some cases where we're not able to hold on to some people, not because of economic reasons. I mean, I'm not a moron. I save for me for rainy days. The company has a bit of a resource pool, but at the end of the day, sometimes you have to let go of people due to performance reasons and fit reasons. They might, some of them would argue that these are special circumstances and these are not forever. But the thing is, as an entrepreneur, you don't know how long this is going to last, and we're going to
Yeah,
have to make this work this way. And if we can't make this work this way, you are probably better suited for another environment, and I'm probably better suited readjusting the way I operate. So it is what it is. I will not deny that we have had casualties, not because of economics, but because of kind of the evolving fit of the situation. So that's where we're at. I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced the same, but I guess the thing that I'm proud of is that we've never had to cut down on the number of work days. We've still been working 5 days a week. Um, we've never had to diminish things like salary increases. The only ones who suspended their salary increases this year are the shareholders in my company. But rank and file employees, managers will get their salary increases and compensation. So, at the end of the day, people have to understand we may not be, too receptive about messages on accountability, but everyone has to listen to it because if a few links in the chain started faltering, as you mentioned, the whole thing could fall apart. So yeah, that's
yeah.
where we're at.
And the larger you are, the bigger the fall. And then you
Yeah.
think, it's my accountability for 200 people. And if one, two, three are deciding to not play ball, because they feel singled out, or because they don't feel like it, or because they have their right reasons. And this is where I say, you have issues, you go and raise them, we try and solve them. So that was the thing for us as well. Like the first 2 months, it's like we're all in this together, everybody stays on board. Because the thought of, first of all, when pandemic hits, which never happened in our lifetime, you think about people's like mental state, and you think about what happens if they lose their jobs.
Right.
Although being in digital, they might find a job, but you don't want it on your conscience. You know, it happened, 30% drop in revenue, you're kissing the red, and our red is like our expenses are huge. But you say, okay, we have money, like you guys, we have money in the pockets. We're going to keep everybody on board, but everybody also should step up. So after 2 months, we realize, okay, now everything is stabilized. We know what's happening. We know where we are at. Now let's look at who's accountable, who's less accountable, who's getting projects and just not fulfilling on them for a week, a month, 2, 3 by now. And we need to have a serious discussion. Why? Maybe it's not the environment for you. Maybe it's not the role for you. Because then in a way, business goes back to business as usual, whether you're in the office or you're at home. Some people see it as a blessing to work from home, some as a curse, especially the one with kids, I think. And we're saying, okay, business as usual. Now, either you share the reasons of why you can't provide what we agreed on, and we help you, or it's not going to work. So that's that's a tough conversation, and that's a tough thing to hear from an employee's side, especially since a lot of our crowd might be people that are working in an organization. But from my end, it's sometimes taking care of the 199 by dealing with the one. That's how I see it. It's a very easy formula for me. But when you have to deal with the one, it feels very personal. It feels very heavy. I want to believe that we're giving chances, a lot of chances, long chances. We never had a dolly case, so but at the end of the day, we can't risk everybody else. And you raised something else that's very interesting for me moving forward: new employees, because we are hiring new employees. Like, how do you onboard them? How do they get that bond? Like when you see our virtual town hall, you see all the private jokes and all the camaraderie, and like it's one big barcada, but how do you get that with a person that you only talk to on Skype or on Google Meet, right? That's a big mystery for moving forward.
It's kind of interesting that you talk about that. Just to circle back to team building and indoctrinating people into the company culture. The odd thing is that some of the it's no secret, and it's not a slight on our writers and editors, but GDI people know this. People in the writing and editorial teams in GDI tend to be super smart people, but a lot of them are, have a personality type that's less open and less sociable than others. I don't know if it's a writer thing. And it's kind of odd that during this pandemic, these are the same people who said, hey, maybe we should do like online social events for the team so we can feel more part of it. And one of the suggestions that came out is that we can probably do like trainings, not just coming from management, but also coming from editors and from writers where they will be able to present to the group, something useful, and then everyone can comment on it, critique it, and just to kind of get that social interaction. So that's one thing that might work for us. I'm not sure if it works for a much larger group like you guys, but maybe you can do it team by team or whatnot. But
everybody has something to share for sure.
Right. The other thing, maybe you can have like a day where people just show their work from home setup or something like that, and show how kids are running around without their pants on in their houses.
We see the occasional cat jumping on the keyboard, and it's still, and we've done some, and some is still to be done. And I'll admit that we were very operational, very tactical in the first few months, so we didn't pay a lot of attention to the kind of the team spirit. We have very autonomous teams, so they're handling their own self. Like they have their own huddles. For example, in our R&D team, the developers, they have this thing when they call it Mornings with Chu. Chu is one of our lead developers, and he's just showing like funny stuff from the news, or they're discussing memes or what's happening, and they're doing their own little thing. How do you do it for 200 people? We still don't really know. Our virtual town halls are pretty, I'd say pretty epic. The first couple of ones had to be a bit stern, but later on they became more about transparency. We expose all the financials. We talk to them about where we are, because to give people peace of mind. When you come to an office, you see that there's an office. Everybody is here. When you're at home, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and you have to give this peace of mind. So for me, the peace of mind first, and then the fun and games. I'm more of a work hard first, then play hard.
Right.
But it's still to be discovered for sure.
We also did something similar in the first couple of weeks. I'm not sure if you did it this bluntly, but I also showed our entire financials to the team, and I gave them worst case scenarios on what happens if we're in the red for this long, and then this long, and then
good. That's very good.
Yeah, and I told them, I even showed them tables on who gets laid off when this happens, when this happens. Like, I didn't name names, but I did name names.
You did.
Yeah.
You and you.
Yeah. So
did you fire yourself?
I'm the last one to go, obviously. That's just the perks of being the founder. But yeah, so that people know where they stand and they're not surprised if ever it happens. But the message I wanted to get across to them, that all of these bad things that could potentially happen are entirely preventable, and they're all reliant on us, number one, sticking together and working together as a team, and number two, holding ourselves accountable to the deliverables, not just to the company, but to the client. But because at the end of the day, you're not just responsible for your own livelihood or GDI and whatnot, you're also responsible to the business as a client. Because these guys also have families, these guys also have lives, and
they trusted us.
And they trusted us. So if we don't deliver to them, he might be 6,000 miles away from you, but this guy is getting fucked up because you're not able to do your shit while you're working from home. So I wanted to show them that if you pull a string on one end, something else moves at the end of that string on the other end. So you better be pulling that string, as best as you could. So I guess
similar. We didn't go all the way to worst case scenarios, although we had like worst case scenarios among ourselves, because you can never know what will be like the depth of you being in the red.
Right.
And for us, it could be as deep as like we need to shut down the entire company because our expenses are pretty high. We're just showing this is our revenue from the beginning of the year per month, and these are our expenses, and this is what we're doing to make the revenue stay away from the expenses as much as we can. It's not a financial course 101 because once like May and June and July came and it started really splitting and the revenue was obviously higher than the expenses, what people need to think is, more goes into HMO, more goes into capital expenditure, into taxes, into unexpected stuff, into licenses, so it's not as clean and crisp. But for us, it was just, we want to show you what we're doing month over month. What are the projects that the different departments are doing month over month? He has to control, to lever the lever that gets the revenue to be higher and the expenses to be lower. So we're all in the green. We're all safe. Similar.
Right. So I know a lot of you guys here are not like agency owners or managers, but I hope you guys are not offended with the way Itamar and I talk about these things, because this is just the reality of it. Like, in the same way that you guys have jobs and deliverables, we are also accountable to you guys to help you provide for your families and whatnot, to help this economy stay afloat. So it is what it is. Sometimes, like as Itamar said, it gets heavy on the conscience to talk about these things and to let people go and whatnot. But at the end of the day, and this is so Star Trek, the needs of the many will outweigh the needs of the few. And there's just no way for management to win in a situation like that. You get to play the villain role, which nobody really relishes. But at the same time, you have to be the hero for everyone else. So
I think John Maxwell said, if I was trying to get liked by anyone, by everyone, I'd go and be a clown. All right, so It's okay. I can't make 200 people fall in love with me or the company. That's not the goal. That for me is the side effect if we did right by everyone or most of them, but always someone will have, their own train of thoughts. And it's natural to think about me first and then the rest. But we're
Right.
trying to show the bigger picture.
So how has this whole thing, the pandemic, the changes in your operations, how has it affected, number one, productivity, and number two, the morale of your organization?
Mm. So we kind of touched productivity, but I'll start from morale because morale is like the person's psyche in a challenging situation. What's your morale like? It's the underlying mechanism that keeps you going when things are tough, and of course that impacts productivity. So when we enter a situation that nobody knows about and never heard of, a pandemic, a plague, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm anxious myself, right? I'm losing sleep. I don't know what's happening tomorrow. I'm afraid that our largest client or largest two clients are canceling with us. And then we really have to send everybody home, and that's going to be disastrous. So my morale, my productivity, I think were a bit questionable in the beginning, in the first few days, although we did jump into action, spring into action, and dealt with everything. And of course, when it comes to the organization, and again, I'm generalizing, the morale was a bit, in a big question mark. Where are we heading? Are we going to have layoffs? How's the company doing? This is why we decided to show the transparency. We decided to release payroll weekly because we don't know, the situation in every person's personal lives. They might have had a spouse or a sibling or a parent that lost their job. So at least we could do something with the cash flow. So we try to do all of those things, have conversations, ship hardware to whoever was missing hardware, load up the bandwidth, the internet bills from our phones. So I think in the beginning, productivity was lowered, and hence some of the drop in revenue, not all of it, but some of it. But it's really started picking back up. I think you need to create a productive, dependable environment when everybody knows what's happening, when do they start, when do they end, and what they're up against. And I think we did a good job. It took us 2 months, I think, to really stabilize everything. I think morale and productivity, we have really great guys from management and to all of our colleagues. They really stepped up. Otherwise we might not have been having this conversation, right? Could have gone totally other way. And I'm telling them, like in town hall, we could have a totally different conversation. This could be a goodbye conversation, right? But we talked about accountability. It might have pissed off some of you, but everybody pulled up. We laid our projects. We started shifting old paradigms because 10 years worth of everything's going great. You have some paradigms that were not shifted because things were too comfortable. We shifted them, and now we're in a much better state. So morale was it, definitely. It's not just work. It's anxiety from what's happening and what will happen, and productivity suffered. Right now we're in a different state. It's stabilizing now, but not without it all.
Right. I guess it's the same way for us. It's a work in progress. I would say that the people who have been with us for years and years are less affected by this whole thing. They know their roles. They know who they're working with. They trust their colleagues.
Trust. That's the key word. It's trust.
Yeah, and as such, whether they're working from home or working from somewhere else, from the office, they're more or less themselves. I know our COO Charles said that is on the brink of insanity from home, but it's better than catching something when he goes outside, because he lives in Parañaque, where there have been quite a few cases. So the best. So he bought himself, a new expensive ass laptop, which kind of helps his mood. So yeah, there's shopping therapy. This pandemic, if anything, helped me understand better how e-commerce, the psychological effects of e-commerce, and not to generalize, but women tend to be more enthusiastic about online shopping. I'm not sure if it's a global thing or if it's a Philippine thing, but most of the orders coming to the office are for women. I tended to understand online shopping a little better because of this whole situation, and people do use it as a coping mechanism to deal with this whole thing. But by and large, I felt that the people working in our office, and I'll describe how our operations is. I kind of skipped over that. After GCQ was declared here in San Fernando, and then subsequently MGCQ, we shifted to Monday, Wednesday, Friday work in the office setup only for the people in the town. So nobody from out of town, even if they're also in Pampanga, but it's a different town. They were initially not requested to come to the office. And there are about 10 people working in the office with proper social distancing being followed. MWF working in the office is being followed. Tuesdays and Thursdays they still have to work from home. By and large, I think those people who are coming into the office tended to have happier dispositions because they have that social interactions instead of I think it's pretty depressing to stay at home, whether it's by choice or you're compelled to by the government. But just that social interaction, sharing meals together, even with social distancing, does help a lot. We've gone as far as to do some rescue programs temporarily for people who have been losing a bit of focus. So by rescue program, I mean that we made sure there was no outbreak in their area. If it's Metro Manila, there's no big outbreak here in Pampanga. So what we do is we drove over there, just picked them up, made sure they were healthy and all, and then brought them here for a week or two.
Oh, wow.
Stay in the office, stay in the staff house, and then kind of reinvigorate yourself. And then we put them back, to their residences, see what happens.
Because it's staycation and work.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of them are. One of them actually wanted to really come back after being put back home for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, one of their neighbors got something, so that's kind of a no-go for now. But if things clear up, I'm sure she'll be back in the office with us. So yeah.
We had the extroverts suffering. They really needed the interaction.
Right. So that kind of that talk of outbreaks and people catching something. How you have 200 people? It's hard to account for everyone's health. How have they been health wise for the past 4 months?
So the pesky side effect of quarantine, first and foremost. I think we had conversations of that sort before. Right. Gaining weight. Yeah. And that's something that bothers me a lot. But besides that, you have that out of a sample size of 200 people. With keeping their privacy, we did have some people that were tested positive. Really a minor amount of people. When we brought people back to the office, out of 20, one had the antibodies, and he didn't even know he was sick, right? Wow. So because we tested whoever's coming back to the office before coming as the skeletal group. So there's that, and then there's the mental health, and this is the trickier one because you have 200 people and they have different experiences and they're in different circumstances, and some are separated from their families, and you can't really help there. And what you can do is just provide a lending ear and a supportive environment, but you have to really understand that also you're not a psychiatrist, you or your managers or the company. And if you really try to dive deep and influence when someone is in the mental state. So we had a lot of conversations about that in the beginning because anxiety was seeping in and people don't know what to do and where to go. And it's stabilized now, but I will say we had a person or two dropping off for just anxiety, and they just didn't want to cope with working from home and with the situation that they've been at that moment. And it's sad, but and it's sad for me because someone's losing their livelihoods, right. And you can't do much about it. You try to be flexible with vacations and try to be flexible with workloads, but at the end of the day, it's their decision. And so health-wise, it's been a roller coaster. Of course, this entire pandemic, I think, is in the sign of health. So health could be from being sedentary all day at home and not exercising, which I've seen people gain some weight, to mental health, and to, of course, the pandemic. It is all around us. I think it's here to stay, sadly. We're seeing it all around at least until there's a vaccine. We told our employees in the last town hall we're not planning to bring anybody to the office until at least next year, like until the end of the year. Because there's no really need to expose and to danger people. But still, you can't control the psyche. You can't control the mental afflictions of a situation like that.
Right. And I'm no doctor. Neither are you. I'm not sure there are any doctors here in this. I agree that this thing will be here for quite a while. But the way I see it is that humanity has either survived pandemics much worse than this one. You've got the Spanish flu, the Black Plague, which are much deadlier than this one, and we had much more primitive medicine, and those things went away. Like, guys, if pandemics were just omnipresent and eternal, perpetual in terms of their presence, then humanity would have died out a long time ago. But I'd like to think we're a tougher bunch, a tougher species than that. And for the pandemics that just refuse to go away, like tuberculosis, I think kills a lot of people every year. That's a germ that keeps evolving. It's bacteria, it keeps resisting newer, more powerful drugs. But by and large, we've kind of learned to, just live with it there. So I think this will end one way or another. I'm not sure if, everyone in this call will make it out of it. I'm no doctor. I can't guarantee it.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, I'm not even sure you or I will make it out of it. I hope we do. But yeah, I think by and large, humanity will go on with or without us. Sadly.
Yeah, and that's for sure as well. I think it's the uncertainty that gets you to be anxious. For me, it was more than the uncertainty of health for me and the people with me. Because of course I don't live with my parents, they're back in Israel. It was the livelihoods of the people I work with that was the reason for, let's call it, anxiousness. Like, again, I talked to Bernard and we talked about anxiousness, and Bernard, he's like a machine. He's super focused, he's super on it, meditates 45 minutes a day. And when he mentioned, my anxiousness, I'm like, you have anxiousness? I said, well, very to a certain degree. And I'm like, yeah, I can relate. I can very much operate. I very much know what I need to do. But there's this like pesky thought, what if you have to tell 200 people that you can't pay them for the month? That's wild. So it brings about a lot of weird scenarios and thoughts and situations. But as the months are progressing, we're learning to deal with it and to live with it. And I don't want to go into estimations of what will be, because I did that like on the first week before we even go into the quarantine. And then I realized I'm being a bit of a Trump, because then I was like, guys, it's okay. It's just a strong flu. Okay, take it back. You're not a doctor. You don't know what's really happening. I think I was even quoted by an employee on LinkedIn on something saying, I heard that I can crush it, so I'm fine, as my CEO said. So I'm like, okay, that's not my role to tell you what you will do, what you will not do. My role is, as long as you guys are working with me, is just to make sure that I'm providing for you.
That's correct.
We need to understand our role, right?
Yeah. So I'll stay out. I'll stay in my lane and try to help you.
It wasn't like you do whatever you want to do. Just for me, that's my learning. Of course, I have opinions, but I generally, stay away from those conversations.
That's true. I mean, we can, as you said, your opinion, your attitude depends on what you choose to watch, consume mentally, and then the people you
and say and hear, of course.
So people, exercise. It not only helps your body, it helps the mind. Like I think one fitness expert put it best, who also happens to be a doctor. He said that exercise isn't just about flexing your muscles or burning some fat. It's also about being in that space where you are alone. It's just you and your body, and giving your mind that time to relax generally helps your psyche as well. And I tend to agree with that. exercise should not be viewed as drudgery or work. It should be viewed as a form of recreation that has a ton of health benefits. So yeah, if you guys are not exercising, do yourselves a favor. Get on a treadmill. If you don't have a treadmill, put on a mask. Just take walks around
Go
your
out.
yeah. If
I
as
was
long
I
as
was running in the parking lot. We have a parking lot in the building. I live in a condominium, so the parking lot is like from floor 3 to 5. So I was running almost every morning, 3 to 5, 5 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 3 for half an hour, just to keep my brain sharp and just the blood flowing. It's important, no doubt.
super important. So
Yeah.
all right. So we hope that this doesn't happen, but but if things turn out worse than they are right now, and you had to lay people off, how would you do it, and what are the things that top manager would look at when he's trying to decide who gets to stay, who gets to go home?
Tough question. To begin with the pandemic, our goal was to keep everyone on board. Doesn't matter what happens, because it's not that the big client canceled and then sure, just go to interviews and you can actually commute and find a job. So the main goal was keep everybody on board. And we realized that losing 30%, we had the overages of between 5 to 20 colleagues, especially later on. After we decided to change some paradigms and take some of the freelance work that we used to have outside inside, we realized that we were a bit fat when we entered this, and around 20 colleagues, in a way, if you look at it from a shrewd business perspective, didn't have what to do necessarily. So we didn't get to that, but we did have the numbers pegged, and we did decide that, like we're going to take our deep pockets from the previous years and take at least 3-4 months where if we're in the red, we're keeping everybody on board no matter what, because this is an unprecedented thing in this world, and the last thing we want is to take people that work with us here even for months and tell them, you know what, you're in quarantine, you're locked at home, but now you also don't have a job. We didn't get there. And I think when we ask ourselves if we do get there, because that's my role, right? As the captain of the ship, I have to be worried daily about what's the next curveball that's going to hit us. And now we're going to react to it. So it really depends on what's the curveball. It depends on the magnitude. It depends on is it in the APAC region, is it in the Philippines, or is it in the US region that we're dealing with, and what we'll have to do to circumvent that. So it's not necessarily that there is a plan or a functional plan to take the bottom performers and send them home, because it's really depending on where did we get the hit, and we can't really forecast it right now. What we did do is and I'm sure you got exposed to the name Axadra, which is the mothership of all the different brands of TrueLogic and of SEO Reseller and of new SaaS programs that we built and new brands that we're setting up. We wanted to create a scenario where we have enough brands and work under the group of companies that if one brand, so we are hedging our bets in a way, if one brand gets hit, we can move people to the other. And so far it's working for us. So first of all, we hedged our bets. We made a decision to keep everybody on board so we don't have to tell someone you lost, even though, again, like productivity-wise, power-wise, we didn't need around 15 people in our ranks, but we couldn't bear the thought of just doing it, because we did it in 11 years that we had when we had the less of deeper pockets. We had 2 times that we had to retrench, and that was not pleasant. Not for the people, I'm sure, although, you see them later on and they have great jobs and they have great lives, but at the time, it's not really great. So we didn't want to get there again, especially when we have deep pockets. And then when it gets to how do we choose, it really depends on the curveball. So what we did do, instead of having a mechanism for choosing right now, is to develop the brands and the tools, the SaaS tools, to be able to provide everybody with jobs. Maybe it's kind of turning the head the other way, but I believe that if push comes to shove, we'll know how to do that and how to do it in the right manner. Hoping that we won't get there, hoping that you won't get there. I'm interviewing people every day. Yesterday, I interviewed a guy and he said, "Oh yeah, my company is just shut down, 250 people, developers and digital marketers." So you're saying, yeah, that could be our story tomorrow. And it's really depending on the size of the curveball that you're going to get. So instead of sitting and guesstimating, we baked into our financial statement or into our forecast a second wave, which I don't think the first wave was ever over in the United States. And we said, okay, we're going to get a 20% dip in revenue coming September. How are we going to deal with it? What we're going to do? We're going to put our heads down and build the new brands and build the new tools and still provide jobs for everybody. And that's the plan. So there's no bottom. Like if you had to go to each manager and start surveying and see who is really in it for the long haul. It's not just what we think; it's what the person thinks as well. So there are many ways to do that. We did it twice. We don't want to do it the third time. We'll get this recording 2 months from now, and who knows what happens. This is for me. This is life, and you have to be open-minded to understand that that's reality. Right. Once you come to terms with it, you do everything you can to never get to that reality. But you have to come to terms with this possibility. And our current possibility is minus 20% in revenue, and we still keep everybody on board, and we just build new revenue with different regions. So it's working on different regions and working on different brands that we're doing.
Right. So on a smaller scale, our story is kind of similar to yours. When this whole thing went down, we were down about 25-30%. It picked up again in May, and as of July, we are plus 30% from pre-pandemic. So we're actually doing better than we did before the pandemic. But of course, what kills us psychologically as business people is that you may be doing well today, but you can never talk about tomorrow with absolute certainty.
Sure.
Like you, I am bracing for the months of August and September. I think October will be a time when the economy picks back up a little bit, like nowhere near what it was pre-pandemic, but it shouldn't be as bad as August and September. So my whole attitude is let's try to keep the money in the company, in the coffers of the company, while we're at plus 30%, so that if we're ever down 30% in the next couple of months, like you, we don't have to let go of anyone for economic reasons. And God knows that for 7 years now since GDI started, we've never let go of anyone for money reasons. But and we don't want to start now. But if it comes down to it, I kind of worked out a formula in my head wherein it's a combination of whether this position is necessary, or is it a luxury? How long the person's tenure is with the company? Just like you, are we able to move him to some of our other projects? Like we have a website here, we have some
medical
here. So that's the thing. I'm not sure how many people who've never owned businesses understand that a lot of business owners are assholes. I'll give you that, especially here in the Philippines. But there are some like you and me, believe it or not, who hire people with the best of intentions, with the vision of growing with that person over the years. We don't hire people to kind of throw them out the moment things get bad. That's just idiotic and counterproductive. That's a waste of resources because it costs money just to generate applications and then
hire them, to learn the product, learn the clients.
So
definitely. That's always the best intention, but between the best intention and reality, there are a lot of gray areas, of course.
That is true. So I hope the same is true for everyone in this call, that your employers did not hire you with anything less than the best of intentions. But sometimes there are factors that would compel them to make decisions that may not necessarily be favorable for you. But life will go on. And for us as business owners, as bad as that feels to let people go sometimes, as you said, sometimes you see them that they're in much better situations than they were with you. So
Yeah.
sometimes we think of it as a life and death matter, the preservation of jobs in our company, but in reality, it's not. We're not killing people here, and they will.
Yeah, that's what I also say. Like people will find a job. It's all good, but we don't want to get there. We don't want to get there.
Right.
I mean, you can go and use cliches, and sometimes I have the I do the crime of using those and to tell someone, for example, if they have to lose their job, oh, we're just severing the hands to save the body. Nobody cares about that. They just lost their jobs. But from this side, you have to look at it like this. You have to say, well, I can continue another month and another month and another month, but then I'm risking a vast majority of you guys for not taking those steps that might make me unpopular, but behind the scenes, be able to provide for you for hopefully many years more.
Right.
Again, it's not a popularity contest, because otherwise I'd never win. It is what it is.
On that note, what advice would you give people if they ever do get laid off in this situation?
If they got laid off or will get laid off, I think I think it's the advice I'll give to people that still have jobs. Because first of all, like a business owner, you also never know when's your personal curveball. And if there's something you can do as a person that got laid off, or a person that might get laid off, or a person that will never get laid off, is to upskill yourself daily. Like you said in the beginning about training, some people are waiting to be upskilled. Some people realize it's not the olden days that you have to go and get a diploma. Everything is out there. There are amazing free courses out there. There are a lot of reference materials. Brian Tracy, I think, he says that if you spend 1 hour a day reading in your industry, 1 hour every day, after 2-3 years, nobody will be able to top you, because majority of us don't really do that, right? If you're that person that upskills themselves as a daily thing, done deal. Like nobody has nothing on you, but people wait to be upskilled. So I'm saying, whether you lost your job, don't wait to lose your job to start upskilling yourself.
Right.
Don't wait for someone to do it for you, because then it's a victim mentality. It's like, because they didn't do it for me, I'm like this. No, you're like this because you're like this. That's it. So it's really about, for me, it's about upskilling yourself. I think it's also Brian Tracy that says like you should reinvest. And I know now in like financial kind of tight times, it's a bit harder, but reinvest 3% of your earnings back into yourself. You're your best investment. You're that vehicle that with you from one job to the other, from one city to the other, from one trip to the other. If you don't invest in yourself, expecting the people to invest in you, you're doing yourself an injustice. So set the habit of learning, upskilling, wake up 1 hour earlier and read. And read in your industry. If it's not in the industry, if you have problem managing projects, read about project management. That problem will just go away like it never existed. If you have people skills issues, read about people management. It will go away. If you don't do that, don't expect anything to go away. Expect everything to be exactly the same for you for years to come. Stagnation.
True.
It's a topic that's close to my heart. Sorry for being going into zealot mode.
Nah. From my perspective, I think you hit on a very important point there, wherein you cannot allow the victim mentality to take hold of your mind, because once that happens, you'll just make excuses for every negative thing that happens in your life, and you're never going to be able to find the resolve to overcome them by your own merit. But I will say this, getting laid off does not diminish you in any way as a person and as a professional. I mean, Corina Sanchez got laid off from ABS-CBN. It happens. Like, she's been there forever. She's one of the best. Whatever your opinion of her is, she's one of the mainstays of Philippine media. It happens. It happens in the US.
To the best.
Yeah, happens to the best. Prior to the pandemic, layoffs were not really a big thing here in the Philippines, and we should be thankful that it's been that way since forever. But now that it's here, we just have to deal with it. But again, never doubt yourself if you ever get laid off. Never think of yourself as a victim. Feel free to be down for a day or two, but after that, think about what's
no more. Yeah. And also get feedback. If you get laid off for financial reasons of the company, sure. But if not, get the feedback. People are sometimes resistant feedback. It's unpleasant to hear. They think it's a personal attack. No. It's someone telling you how could you get to your next level. Sometimes people, when you see a friend and they're having a tough time with, I don't know, their partner or their job, and you can see it so clear for them, but they're not seeing it. And like, oh, I can really see that's the issue. Or maybe you shouldn't be with that person, but they cannot see it. They're masked. Or they have a screen in front of their faces. That's the same thing. It's like, if someone tells you something, you don't have to take it. You don't have to bow down. You have to write it down and go back and maybe ask another person that is close to you, is that true? Be honest with me, because I really want to become better. So always reflect. Experience itself is not the teacher. The insight and the action after the experience is the teacher. You experienced a layoff. You want to prevent it. See if it was because of you. See if it was because the company had a very unstable financial background or business model to begin with. There's there's a learning, I believe, always.
Yeah, and when it comes to learning, the first thing you have to, not get rid of, but kind of tone down would be your ego. Ego is the number one barrier to learning. But once you learn how to turn off your ego in certain appropriate situations, that's when you start to learn. And in this industry in particular, in SEO, it's the people who take time to learn outside of their normal responsibilities in the company that really tend to excel. Like, I won't give myself as an example, but like the likes of Jason Asidre, like these are real students of the game. He got so far in his craft, as far as he did in his craft because of his determination to, never stop learning. I don't think he ever intended to be one of the best. He just wanted to keep learning. But domestically, in my own organization, one of our SEO managers, who happens to be my cousin, he started out as a regular SEO specialist. He did not have any background in marketing whatsoever. He used to be a teacher, but once he started doing this thing for us, he even spent weekends studying things like Google Ads, analytics, and within 6 months, he was Google Ads certified. Within a year, he was a manager. So your learning and your accomplishments in this industry depends on you. If you're the person who just works 8 to 5 and does your thing and then goes away after that and does not care about your industry after the office hours, you can live with that kind of...
Might be in the wrong industry.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying you can keep your job probably under normal circumstances and even through this pandemic, but you'll never be, up there with the management, with the mainstays in this industry. So
earn double or earn triple or start your own company, because sometimes people will say, oh, entrepreneurship is so great, I have a company, I could put it on LinkedIn, I can buy a domain, but the same issues you had as an employee will manifest as you as a business owner. It will sustain for a month or two or half a year or a year, but it'll be done because you didn't make it a point to fix your blind spots, those things that you don't see but other people are pointing out for you because of ego. It's a great example about SEOs because that's something that was not taught in school. Now, by the way, universities are teaching SEO as part of the curriculum, but back then, if you're a curious person, if you're semi-technical and you start tinkering and you got that experience, all of a sudden you're a great SEO. We have SEOs that I'd say are not the best English communicators, but they're amazing SEOs. So when a new employee would come from top school and say, okay, who can I learn from in this organization? That will be not the prime suspects, right? But if you humble yourself and you say, everybody can teach me something, and you seek those teachings every day, kick the ego away, you learn a lot.
So we have the last couple of questions here for you, and then we'll let other people do the questioning. So where do you see the SEO industry in the next 3 years?
3 years is a long time. Who knows? Everybody's always trying. SEO is dead. SEO is this. SEO is that. I've been in SEO. I started as a programmer, and then someone told me, "Hey, can you do this SEO for our websites?" And I was like, "Why are you wasting my time?" And then when they insisted, and I did, and all of a sudden I see tens of thousands of dollars in sales. Like, wow, that was amazing. Like, did I do that? And since then, SEO is still kicking ass, and SEO is still generating millions of dollars for businesses in revenue. I think it is changing, but you go with the change. So I can't see 3 years into the future when it comes to SEO. I can barely see 3 months into the future now when it comes to things because of this entire uncertainty. but there'll always be noise. There'll always be fake gurus. The bottom line is a balancing act of doing whatever you can or whatever it takes for your clients without putting them at risk. If it was up to Google, think about it. No one would even try to gain that edge, because Google is all about the ads. Google never made serious money if it wasn't for ads. So if I'm looking at SEO, the organic traffic is really being squeezed by ads and by features by Google. So if you want to be strategic about it, you need to understand that what you need are the clientele that are still dependent on discoverability. Right? Their potential clients don't know about them, and it's usually not a social word of mouth scenario like a restaurant or a resort. You can ask on Facebook, you can ask your friends now. It's really, I have a need. Nobody can tell me, because this need is, I wouldn't say rare, but it's not something that hits you every day. It might hit you once in a lifetime, and then you're looking for that business on Google. So you take that to the GMB, you take that to the local, you can take that to schema, you take this to citations, you take that to some amazing content marketing about the topic. You still have a very, very long, hard job to optimize for at least 3 years, I'd say. So for me, SEO is just taking a turn towards discoverability of local businesses that are less word of mouth-ish, if I had to zoom you on a niche. Yeah. What do you think? I want to hear it from you, because obviously you've been in the game as long as me, and or was almost as long as me, and you've seen it from all sides and directions.
I agree 100% that Google is becoming more aggressive with advertising and keeping traffic in-house, like with their featured snippets and whatnot.
They want to eat the entire pie.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and they used to be about, leading people to other great websites. But now it's more about retaining that traffic. Yeah, keeping the economic activities going on in-house. So that's the thing. But organic search isn't going away for the foreseeable future. It's going to be pretty much quality focused, quality oriented. But one thing that I noticed that younger SEOs, less experienced SEOs, tend to get so worked up with would be Google updates, and sometimes the core algorithm update hits you, and then you get demoralized and don't try again or tend to give up on it. We have one website that makes about 300,000 visits per month, and it got hit by the core algorithm update for no apparent reason. I think it was May 4th when it started. We instantly saw a 60% drop in organic search, and then it flatlined for a couple of weeks, and then another 20% drop followed after that. And I'm like, Google must be trying to kill this website. And then whenever things that shocking happen, because I know that website was not penalized, Google just adjusted its algorithms, and we happened to be just in a bad place at a bad time. We never even built links for that website, so how could we get penalized? All we did was content. But sometimes you have to consider the fact that Google at its core is still programmed by humans, and humans are always susceptible to errors, and Google will tell you that it tries, and it tries different things all the time. Some of the things it keeps, some of it doesn't. And as of July, we recovered about 60% of that lost traffic, and organic traffic is starting to go back to pre core algorithm update levels. So whenever things like, don't go surfing these kinds of algorithm updates, and go try looking for things for cures to diseases that do not exist within the Google context. Sometimes it's like it's like dating a girl. In the middle of the relationship, things are growing great, and then she finds out that she prefers another type of guy, and that doesn't mean you suck. It just means she had a change of heart. But one day she might go back with you. That's kind of a bad analogy.
So the girl is the Google. So then Google favors you again. If a girl did that, like, I don't talk to you for a month and then I call you back. Usually guys do that, right?
Yeah,
I'd say no. But with Google, you're right. Like, if you tank for no obvious reason, and I didn't do any spammy link building, and the content is spot on, sometimes it's worth to wait for at least a few weeks without changing anything, because they realize, oh, I actually do like that website. I made a mistake. I might tweak the algorithm after the fact, because this is machine learning. Once they shuffle the entire index, they start getting feedback. What's their feedback? The feedback is someone visits a new SERP and exiting very fast. So if the pogo stick effect, right? And this is all those shuffles start kind of, if you imagine like billions of websites, you show them one index and they stay on the website for a long time. You show them another index that you think is a better index, but they bounce back very quickly. You say, okay, wait, we need to start optimizing that new index. So if you're sure of your skills and of your website, I say wait for a few weeks. And we've seen that it'll kind of come back up, because the algorithm will start healing itself with kind of the machine learning part of the algorithm.
Right. And as much as Google touts its algorithms and machine learning, as I said, there's still a very big human component to this. And if you're under the impression that Google is just this monolithic machine that doesn't listen to anyone or does its own thing, it couldn't be farther from the truth. If you remember,
listens to us.
Yeah, it listens to us. Google does listen. It's invited the likes of Benj, Aleda Solis, Barry Schwartz regularly to ask for feedback. So it does do some rollout. So if you get, if your traffic declines, never panic immediately and start changing up the entire strategy. Wait a couple of weeks. If you can afford to wait a couple of months, see what happens. Sometimes when you panic and you start changing things will get worse for you. So yeah, writing algorithm changes is a very risky proposition. Okay, so we've spent quite some time here. I don't want to keep you away from lunch for too long, and I know people are interested, but they also have to eat at some point. We'll go to our last question. So my last question is this: you're a pretty successful entrepreneur, even if you try to be modest about it. So in a situation like this, where there's a health crisis and the resulting economic fallout is pretty big. If you were starting a business right now, what are the things that you would look at in terms of opportunity, and how would you go about it?
Okay, so like if I had my say, if I had like a full blank check, of course I'll hedge my bets if it's a brand or a business that can service different locations, different countries even. So when the US seemed to be doing bad, we really started hedging our bets on the APAC region, and that was a move that started growing revenue here versus there. So it's a business that is not necessarily just one geolocation based. And again, if I could have everything I wanted, it would be 100% online, which I'm a big fan of. No physical dependency necessarily, and addressing the widest gamut of potential clients or users. B2B probably as well, because businesses will always be there, and businesses will always start. Even under pandemic, businesses would start. So giving them some sort of solution would be my choice. And then later on, it's SaaS, which is something that I'm a big fan of, being a programmer myself, and something that we're investing in more right now. So that would be my thing. But I think it was on the wish list of every entrepreneur. Can I have a SaaS that can service the entire world with no physical? So that will be a fantasy, which is feasible. But again, you have to do it really right. So when you don't have those skills or those funds or those inputs, you have to start somewhere. You do something else. So you start a brand that deals with Manila and Cebu, or deal with Manila, Philippines and Singapore. So you hedge your bets, because we've seen that different countries treated this thing differently, and we've seen that different people had different psyche in different countries. So you try to hedge your bet that way. And B2B is always something I'm a fan of, because also as a business owner, it's easier to relate to businesses. So you know what they need, you know what struggles they're having. When we do retail and you have like the grocery store owner, I don't know what's happening with the grocery store owner. I don't know their difficulties. I don't know really how to help them besides rank them. But when you bring a business owner that has an enterprise to run, I can definitely know what they're dealing with day in, day out, all the way to the little anxieties, right?
Right.
So that would be the thought process.
Yeah. As for me, if I was starting out right now, I know a lot of people are trying to get into online selling. I guess you can call me a hipster, but I would probably stay away from that, from the things that everyone else is doing. What I would do is try to come up with a product or service that services these online sellers. Like don't
Sellers.
go
Yeah.
after the don't have like you. I'm a B2B kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to retail to the consumers themselves, but if everyone wants in on online selling, that's where I see the opportunity.
Give them
Like,
the platform.
yeah, give
Yeah.
them a platform or something. Like, I'll give you an example, and I hope like if anyone from Lazada is listening to this, it's not a knock against you. I'm just stating facts. I tried to sell stuff on Lazada, and I kind of stopped after a dozen orders or so. Not because not because people were not buying. They are. Like Lazada is pretty good at marketing, branding, and all that stuff. But the way it treats its sellers leaves a lot to be desired, I feel. And if you are a
Mm.
smaller seller and it pays you out after a month, maybe 2 months, you might have already tanked before that payout came in to replenish your stocks. So uh, I would advise people that if you want to be an online seller, don't build your empire on someone else's land. Like you can sell to Lazada as a secondary platform, but um, if you had the capacity to build your own e-commerce platform, that might be better for you in the long run. So that's just my opinion. That's just me based on my experiences and my expertise and whatnot. But it might work out a lot better for other people. So if anyone of you guys here are selling well on Lazada or Shopee, please feel free to
That's
educate me.
very true. That's very true. You say everybody's now running to dig gold. Everybody's like, there's a rush for gold, and you're like standing in the gate selling them shovels, right?
Exactly.
Like, okay, sure. You want to dig gold? Be my guest. I'll sell you the shovels. We work with banks. I talk to friends in VPs in banks, and we have a big logistics company. And I'll tell you that these guys are looking for platforms to invest or buy platforms that are helping sellers, right? So that exactly falls into your criteria of everybody wants to sell. Sure, some will succeed, some will not. At the end of the day, I think I see some questions, and if we have time, would love to do some. And I see Arvin. What's up, Arvin? And Mark. Uh, both worked with me in the past. I love these guys, sharp guys. You're talking about e-commerce. I think there'll be an amalgamation because how many people can sell fruits and vegetables online, right? That one person will really do it right, and he'll be the depot
Right.
for produce, and that person will be the depot for electronics. So it'll be a very tough game. You could do very small time unless you're really poised and planning and putting your entire self 24/7 to become the bigger, the sooner. Otherwise, you'll be taken over. So, like Glenn's saying, yeah, I think e-commerce will be here to stay. It got like a boost. E-commerce, what would have taken 5 years in the Philippines was done in 5 months. But the question is, do you want to be that little seller? Do you want to be the biggest, or do you want to give the platform or the services? So we talked about B2B. Start an agency, do just e-commerce, right? I know Mark is in a company that does great with e-commerce. They're very analytical. They're very much about the nitty gritty. And I think that there's a lot of room for those companies to help all those sellers, and of course go for the mid and top tier while educating the beginners, the lower tier, because these guys might become your clients one day. I think whoever is strategic in thought, there's a lot to be done, especially in e-commerce.
I want to kind of simplify the whole thing about these emerging industries and opportunities with a quote. I can't quote it directly, but Sam kind of explained this to me when I was starting out in DRI, like almost a decade ago. He explained that in every industry, there's usually just two main competitors, and then there's everyone else. Sometimes there's three, but for Nike, there's always Adidas. For
Yeah.
probably there's McDonald's. For for the Backstreet Boys, there's this NSYNC. So for things like that, if you see an emerging trend in the Philippine market, so for example, if it's a vegetable retailer online in the Philippines that's being born right now, you have to make sure that you're at least in the top two. Sam made an analogy of people like in a who are stuck in a hole and who are all trying to come out. In the moment that two people emerge from that hole, they're going to get a cover and cover that hole for everyone else
Oh,
to get.
wow.
So
that's kind of art of war type of analogies, but it's a very good one. You'll be the struggling one. If you don't make it a point to be the first or second one, you'll be a struggling one for a long time until, if you're lucky, you'll be bought out. If you're unlucky, it'll just be a grind, like a grind that you do for years.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not to say that it's not good to have a mediocre e-commerce business. That's totally fine. But I'd say again, it's choosing that thing that you really understand and you're really passionate about, and to try to become the number one or number two the soonest. Not on like on first or second gear. Like really go for it. So I think, to Mark's question, I think that the e-commerce in the Philippines was totally boosted, and I think it will last post-COVID. I think it's because for me, I'm coming from Israel and I've experienced e-commerce years and years ago, and I built e-commerce. And once you enjoy the ease of getting you don't want to go back. Why would I click and it's here, and I don't need to think twice about my money being stolen. A lot of worries that how am I going to pay for it? Now it's becoming very easy. How quick it's going to get here, becoming much faster. There's no reason for it to go away. It's just like a leap of 5 years forward, with logistics and services and financial abilities to pay online. It presents a lot of opportunities. If you're thinking I'll be a seller, Glenn says rightfully, give the platform, be the service, be the teacher. Because I think when you do that, also you kind of open yourself up to be part of everybody that sells. Later on, you can pick partners. You can become someone's partner. You become strategic partner. You can start something yourself. Well, we see Amazon doing it, but in a bit of a bad way, when they're looking at what their top sellers are doing and they're copying them. In a way, that's what Google's doing, trying to eat the old pie, not understanding that this ecosystem is what got everybody there to begin with. Even the SEO, in a way, made the world a better place because the websites are running faster, are written better, the images are more optimized. Otherwise, nobody would care. But now you're trying to squander that by eating the whole pie. Exactly. Right? Everything is just ads. So let's see where it takes us.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? If you want to ask using your voice, that would be better.
But, all right. Good seeing you too, Mark. Or not seeing, if you want to show yourself. Are you in the US? Are you quarantining in the US? Okay. Keep safe.
All right.
Questions. I like the names XML and robots.txt. We had a few names there. Cool names to have.
Yeah, I've been seeing business names, which is kind of a new thing that only started popping up in this episode.
If you want to do webinars for small businesses, I would love to be on. I know Bernard's doing it through certain channels. I would love to do the same. I think it's time to pay back, and it's time to teach the stuff that people might think it's rocket science, but for a small business owner, just opening a free GMB is a huge deal. Uploading a few photos and putting your products in, bang, a post once a week. Mind-blowing, right? And we could do that gladly.
Yeah, for sure. We can work on that one. All right. So if we don't have any other questions, I think we can wrap this up. It's time for lunch anyway. Itamar, thank you so much. Again, nonstop learning every time I have you on a conference, whether it's online or in person. I hope the in-person gatherings happen again sooner than later. Thank you so much for sharing your time, sir.
Sure. Hey, June, PPC King. I see a lot of familiar names. Sorry if I didn't recognize you all, but I'm seeing people from the past and people from the present. It's very cool to see you guys. Nice. We need a good conference soon. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
We're going to be on this webinar along with Great Flores next week, hopefully. So watch out for that one, guys. We're going to talk about PPC next week, and then we're going to have some other guests like Mark Samson. I'll invite Roel Manarang to talk about social media a little bit. So yeah, lots to look forward to. The pandemic is no excuse for us not to learn from each other. And thank you again for joining us in this call. It's recorded. I will not be able to release and edit it immediately, but as soon as we do, we're going to go Netflix on this one. Thank you so much, Itamar.
Awesome. Salamat. Ingat.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.